8 years ago today, I was at the World Cup final in Russia. I know that because my timelines on social media are flooded with images of me beaming from side to side like a Cheshire cat, as you'd imagine from somebody ticking off something off their bucket list. But what the photos don't show are the other side of what it's like when you're living life with chronic illness. Even something as absolutely incredible as a World Cup final can be compromised because of illness. Now look, if you don't have 15 to 20 minutes to watch this video in full now, please save it to your favourites. I really do think that you're going to want to hear this. I'm going to read you a short chapter from my book. It's only 6 pages long. It's one of the funnier chapters, and it really takes a bit of a deeper dive into what it's like just living your life when you have chronic illness, or in my case, living life with HS, hidradenitis suppurativa, if you're new. I'll talk more about the book later, but just before I do begin, I want to just give 30 seconds of context. Before the World Cup began, I tried to get tickets. I was living in Russia at the time. You do need to read the book to fully understand that. But I was applying for tickets, I didn't get any, and I was down on my luck. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to still try and meet up with loads of people coming here and provide them with a great experience, because Russia's a really confusing place. So I created a massive PDF talking about restaurants, transport, tickets, everything, and shared it on the internet. Lo and behold, that was one of the greatest things I did, because I got invited into a WhatsApp group of old-timers, massive football supporters from all around the world, 180 people, and they helped me get tickets to numerous games. There's the context. Now, let me read you this story. The chapter is called Interlude 2, World Cup Final and the Tactical Nappy. Now, this is a book about my life, and it's a book about living life with chronic illness. This is 60 pages into the book, and it's one of the funnier chapters designed to bring a bit of lightness amongst the darkness. So here we go. Interlude 2, World Cup Final and the Tactical Nappy. The World Cup Final, 2018, France versus Croatia in Moscow. A ticket for that, rarer than rocking horse shit, probably only second to the Super Bowl in terms of global desperation. But I'd done plenty of favours for many of the international football lads who'd pitched up in St. Petersburg for the earlier games. So I had a bit of good karma, and it was floating around. Veronica and I had discussed the cheapest ticket, a cool 400 quid. Her response was a resounding and entirely sensible, "Are you mental, Gareth? No, sorry mush." But a few hours later, alone at work, a message pinged through from my Argentinian mate, Gustavo, one of the hardcore from our WhatsApp group of over 100 football fanatics. "Final ticket in my cart. You want it, mate? 2 minutes to reply, my friend." "Yes, please, mate." Sent before my brain even engaged. Balls to the cost, and respectfully, stuff Veronica's entirely reasonable objections. This was the World Cup final. Bucket list stuff, number 3. And when was this opportunity ever going to come round again? No. You never look a 400 quid gift horse in the mouth like that. I couldn't. Veronica wasn't best pleased. She'd understand with time, I hoped. The Russian government and their occasionally useful autocratic hearts were even putting on free transport for the fans with game tickets, indulging in the very 21st century fad of sports washing. The free transport included long-distance sleepers, so I took advantage and booked the overnight rattler to Moscow the night before the game and went to bed feeling like a giddy kid. Alright, so here I am on the train, half an hour away from Moscow. It was too late last night to make a video. Got on the train at like 2:40 and everyone was already sleeping, and nobody was up for making videos, and the light was really bad. But today the final, I'm pretty buzzing now. Half an hour till I arrive. There was, however, a rather significant and potentially very messy fly in the ointment. No, not the trauma associated with my last overnight train involving Moscow, chapter 1. Though that had been entering my mind. Rather, for the previous 10 weeks, I had been on a new experimental IV infusion drip treatment with a specialist doctor, a woman called Yulia. Absolutely bang tidy, a petite blonde-haired bombshell. Red stilettos at work were so wonderfully inappropriate and provided a welcome, distracting contrast against the white clinic walls and a reason to look at her erotically black stocking legs. Goddamn. Composure. This is totally inappropriate on many levels. Though I'm sure she's flirting. Quite a lot. She is. She isn't. Stop it. Woosa. Okay, back on track. The side effects were, to put it mildly, biblical. It had initially kicked my HS into overdrive, leading to me seeing Yuri, a private surgeon. I'd moved up in the world from my state hospital days. I went to see him twice for a couple of quick snips down below, which was as absolutely delightful as always. But the real sting in the tail for this particular adventure was the state of my guts. Swollen, painful knees I could handle, just about, keep plodding on. But the constant, unpredictable, and often violently explosive diarrhea, well, that was a new type of inconvenience altogether. The train journey there was spectacular in its own way. The train, virtually empty, meant I had a whole cabin to myself, which felt wonderfully romantic. But my arse was a ticking time bomb. Multiple emergency dashes to the loo, each one a prayer the ancient plumbing would hold. Grateful wasn't the word for that empty carriage, and I barely slept a wink. But at least I didn't gas out any unsuspecting babushkas. I arrived in Moscow early, met up with Gustavo and about 25 or 30 others from the WhatsApp group, a proper United Nations of football obsessives. Men and women, some of who had been doing this for 40 odd years. We spent the whole day together, sharing football stories, reveling with fans from around the world, soaking up every part of the day. For many, like me, this was likely on their bucket list too. The anticipation grew electric pre-match, like no footy game I had experienced before. There were thunderstorms and heavy showers in the air all around. The atmosphere was rising. As I made my way with great trepidation up the tortuous 150 steps I had to walk, making it up to the final steps, off the concourse and into the arena was startling. Only St James's Park had ever moved me when I entered, but this stopped me dead in my tracks. The wall of noise and colour put even St James's Park to shame, and that takes some doing. As I took my seat with the 78,000 others, the quiet descended as the final fans took their seats. And then the players walked out to the booming beat of Seven Nation Army. The goosebumps settled in and things got serious. A World Cup was on the line. It was tense. The game kicked off. Now, about the nappy. I'd planned for it, obviously. Knew that I'd be up shit creek without a paddle at some point. If I knew anything about HS and illness at this stage, it was to always be over rather than under prepared. With that in mind and my guts giving me serious jip, a few days before the final, I'd awkwardly shuffled into a local pharmacy, my Russian just about good enough to stammer out the request for adult nappies. The pharmacist, a stern-looking woman who'd probably seen it all, didn't bat an eyelid. I got a 3-pack. The lads in the group, they knew, of course. We communicated daily for months before the event on WhatsApp, sharing tourney predictions, transport plans, accommodation and entertainment suggestions, and largely just lots of piss-taking. Literally hundreds of messages every single day for months. In the 4 weeks before the final, I'd met with more than 30 of them. I'd met with many of them all around the beautiful and majestic city of St. Petersburg, dragging my unwilling body along as dead weight most of the time. They saw me all my varying different degrees of fucked. Banter can be tricky in a testosterone and ego-driven male-only WhatsApp group. However, this one was harsh but fair. Cherry-pick people only. Trav, an Australian bloke, started this WhatsApp group a couple of years earlier in France for the Euros, a way to build a network of reliable people who could be trusted and help each other get tickets. And me. I didn't mind the laugh at my expense if it meant I'd be able to immerse myself in football with these people in this city that I'd grown to love. Besides, by 2018, after years of hiding and shame, I was starting to genuinely not give a rat's ass about this stupid disease. Thankfully, HS-wise, I didn't have any major abscesses brewing, just a persistent, annoying one in my left armpit which lingered like a fart in a tent on a damp morning, and a painful little bugger on my inner right thigh. Not too bad in the grand scheme, just a bit of a bastard in the muggy Moscow heat.
Finally here at the Luzhniki, waiting to see the final. I'm absolutely buzzing off my tits. I can't believe it, it's amazing. It's kind of like a dream come true, but it doesn't feel real. The stadium looks mightily impressive. Moscow is very hot and humid. I'm sweating like crazy. The atmosphere is building. I'm gonna head in now and see if I can find my friends inside.
The main, overriding, all-consuming problem were my treacherous guts. Back to the final. The Luzhniki was absolutely bouncing. Atmosphere electric. Second half of a World Cup final, and it's proper end-to-end stuff. France are turning the screw, but Croatia, typically, just won't lay down. I remember clear as day, because it was right down in front of me. Mbappe picks up the ball just outside the Croatian box. He's only about 19, dipped a shoulder, and then sold the defender. The whole stadium holds its breath. With the space he's manoeuvred, he just unleashes this absolute pile driver. Subasic, the Croatian keeper, dives at full stretch, a proper Superman impression, but it's been drilled into the bottom left corner. Goal! 4-1. The French bloke next to me, who I'd been exchanging polite nods with all game, absolutely loses his shit, jumps up screaming, grabs me in a massive garlic-infused hug, probably thinking I'm some long-lost cousin from Lille. The place erupts, proper bedlam, and that's when I casually shat myself. It slipped out like a seal off a wet rock. Honestly, I didn't give a flying fuck, mate. The Nappy, bless its absorbent cotton heart, was doing its job commendably. Just another layer to the beautiful, multi-sensory experience of international football, eh? After the game, though, it was a very different story. Nightmare. All the stadium toilets were suddenly closed off. Fans funneled away through the same few exits. I had to walk, or rather trundle, like a car stuck in limp mode, half a mile or more to find a functioning bog. The party atmosphere outside the Luzhniki was incredible. Flares going off, singing, flags waving. It also absolutely pissed it down. I was sodden. At the same time, I was acutely aware I was carrying a little turd baby, and that it was trying to break free. The Nappy was coming to the end of its day. It was sagging. It was rubbing against my arse, the dampness creeping towards my lower back. I could feel it squelching under my t-shirt. I could definitely smell it. Rancid. Fucking awful. Sweaty, steamy, and deeply, profoundly foul, even for me. It took a good 40 minutes on foot to reach the pub we'd all agreed to meet at. I made a beeline for the toilet. I was in there for what felt like an age, trying to sort out the unholy mess. The group, naturally, noticed my prolonged absence, and when I finally emerged, looking pale and slightly traumatised, the piss-taking commenced immediately. I was running on no sleep, the adrenaline was crashing hard, and frankly, after dealing with the contents of my own arse in a cramped, smelly pub toilet, I was in a stinker of a mood. The lads, naturally, wound me up relentlessly. I bit back, foolishly playing to the crowd, probably being a bit of a dick. It all turned into a laugh eventually, but I was apparently quite snappy with a poor unsuspecting waitress who took far too long to bring me my pot of Earl Grey tea. Earl fucking Grey. How pretentious, eh? I lived like an English lord in Russia. You could take the boy out of England. We stayed until midnight, most of the group peeling off. My train back to St. Pete wasn't until 3:30 a.m. I decided to walk to the station with my Canadian friend, Yaron, knowing it was probably the last time I was ever likely to see him again in person. We said our goodbyes at his Airbnb, and I carried on. No more than 10 minutes later, disaster. An awful, urgent belly rumble. I needed to shit, now. I was in the middle of some anonymous Moscow suburb, dead of night, not a public convenience in sight. Desperate, I called Yaron. Thank the big man he picked up. He, being a top bloke, told me to come back to his small, modernised, Soviet-era flat. He even came out on his street to help me find him, aware of my critical situation before I arrived. I spotted him 30 metres in the distance. He was bent over, laughing grotesquely as I legged it up to him, running like a dad with ankles tied together on sports day, just to keep the surging mudslide trapped where it belonged. Before my arse even touched the seat, I began to absolutely splatter his pristine toilet bowl, shite everywhere. The full, liquid orchestra of my protesting arse, simultaneously howling with laughter and gasping for air. Tears rolling, he heard every last explosive, bowel-loosening note, every roar of laughter, every chortle. I was on his toilet, no more than 3 or 4 metres from his face, for 45 minutes, 2 or 3 distinct sessions of colonic warfare, before I felt even remotely safe to leave. Yaron, to his eternal credit, just laughed and persuaded me that a taxi to the station was probably a better idea than another nocturnal stroll. Last time I saw him. He did jokingly threaten me with a cleaning bill a week later though. I made it to the station, onto the train, and dragged my battered body and even more battered dignity all the way back to St. Pete. I felt well drained. Luckily, with a clean nappy left in my man bag and a whole cabin to myself again, I was hopeful of a sound and safe night's sleep. All in all, a truly memorable 36 hours, definitely positive despite the shits. Another massive one ticked off the bucket list. And you know what? Even with the shitting myself, the dodgy guts, the HS grumbling away, I was so incredibly happy to just be there, in that moment, sharing history, amazing memories, and most importantly, amazing people. All right. The photos don't show that. They don't show any of that. They just show a real happy Gaz inside the Luzhniki. They show me making vlogs on the train. They show me drinking beers in the pub with people, but not being able to sit down because of the abscess on my inner thigh. They don't show any of the struggles that I had to go through to be able to enjoy this experience. And believe me, there were far more struggles that made it into the final version of the book. I just thought you'd enjoy that. A little bit of humour for you on a Sunday evening. And for those people who are unaware of what HS is, maybe now you'll be interested to find out more about it. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this, to raise awareness for HS. So if you've got HS or some other hidden disease, I know what you're going through every day just to live your life. Going to a football game is really difficult. Even when you're fit, they make it difficult these days. So being unhealthy or being disabled or having a chronic illness that affects your ability to do day-to-day things like enjoying yourself, it needs to be spoken more about. And that's what this was for. Thanks a lot for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you are watching the World Cup final, well, enjoy that. But I suspect if you're watching this, you're probably sat with someone who is watching the World Cup final right now and you couldn't give a shit. So hopefully, at least this is World Cup themed and keeps you on topic so you can continue the conversation after the game tonight. Enjoy the game. I'll see you in the next video.